We are starting week 2 of our series, Unshakable. Last week was an incredible week where we are looking at Jesus' final words in his final day of life and the promise he made us that we could be unshakable. Last week we talked about how we can be unshakably strong even when life is overwhelmingly difficult. And we talked about how being unshakable is as simple as getting back up. But this week, I promise you, I'm going to tell you more than just to stand up. I'm going to give you something to stand on. It is my heart and my prayer that you leave more confident than you came, because understand this, Jesus promised us more than just being unshakable. In John 16:33, he said we could be unshakable, assured, and deeply at peace. And this morning I'm going to talk to you about being assured. And like I said, it is my heart and my prayer that we leave more confident in the way we came. Cool? Yeah. But first, I need to share with you that my husband and my daughter left me last week to go to Indiana, and I was left by myself to roam the expanse that is New York City all by myself, okay? I wish I could tell you about all of the exotic foods that I ate. I wish I could tell you about all the live music I listened to, all the amazing places I went to, spiritual walks through Central Park that I took, but none of that happened. No, I decided to go spontaneously to the dentist. Yes, I did. Spontaneously went to the dentist. I know, living on the edge. You know, this is even a new low for me, really. But while I was at the dentist, and while I was filling out a questionnaire, that they asked me this question. They said, "How nervous and anxious are you to be at the dentist this morning? Are you severely nervous? Are you moderately nervous? Are you mildly nervous? Or not at all?" To which I responded, as many of us would respond, "I'm moderately nervous." I signed up to do something that I'm moderately anxious about. And fun fact, in life, I'm probably moderately anxious about everything. Everything. I'm a lot more doubtful and insecure than I am confident. And maybe that's some of you in this room, right? Some of us can feel like we're not super secure and confident. And the reason they ask us that is because they know that when we're feeling least assured, the more we need someone to assure us. They want to know so that they know to what extent they can assure you. In my case, it's a lot. And while I'm sure there are people that are naturally assured on their own, right, be it in life or at the dentist, the rest of the 99.9% of us oftentimes need for our assurance to come from an outside source, right? We need assurance from our parents when we're children that there are no zombies under our bed or monsters in our closet. We need assurance from our friends that we don't have food in our teeth and that we could do so much better than him after that breakup. You know what I'm saying, Anna? I would call Anna. If you're having that issue, Anna's going to cheer you on with, "You deserve better than him." We need assurance from our coaches that we have what it takes to get back in the game. And even when it comes to a paramedic, the very first thing a paramedic does when they arrive on the scene of an accident is talk to the person and say and assure them, "Don't worry, it's all going to be okay." At least that's what I've seen on Grey's Anatomy. But here's what's true. We all need a little assurance sometimes, don't we? Thankfully, dentists and parents and pastors understand that, but understand God knows that as well. We need a little assurance. And this morning I want to ask you, how does God find you today? If you were filling out a questionnaire in the waiting room, would you say you're nervous, moderately nervous, severely nervous, mildly anxious, or not at all? How confident and secure are you in yourself, God's heart, and more specifically, his plan? Maybe like me, you're a lot more doubtful and nervous than you are confident and secure. But I believe it is God's heart and intention to assure us today. He wants to assure us. He wants to speak so confidently and positively over us this morning, so as to dispel any doubts that we may have. God wants us to know that if we trust him today, he can make our doubts disappear. He can make them disappear. It's a lofty promise, but we see it's what God did for a man named David. You see in Psalm 22 and 23, we don't know what David is going through. But in these back-to-back Psalms, almost like consecutive journal entries, we see that on one day, David is severely anxious. day afflicted. And on the next day, he's profoundly assured. If David was filling out a questionnaire in the waiting room, on the first day he would say, I'm severely anxious. I don't know how to trust God. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if I can do this. But on the next day, it's as if his doubts have completely disappeared. He begins by asking some tough questions of God, and maybe some of us in this room have asked these same questions. He says this, it'll be up on the screen, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. Every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. Understand that David is doubting God's presence in his life. He's doubting his presence. God feels far, and David feels forgotten. He's been calling out to God over and over, but he's receiving no response. Have you ever felt that way before? Like you just keep praying and praying and praying, and you're not getting an answer. Some people don't even believe in God, right? But you're like, I'm going to pray to him anyway and see if he's real. God, I need you if you're there. I need you to help. Sometimes it feels like we're calling to God over and over, but it feels like he's sending our calls straight to voicemail. I told you last week how my family and I have, for years, we've wanted another child. So many of you have prayed for us 4 years for another child. But I thought of this funny story that I have of my daughter. She's now 8, almost 8, but when she was 4 years old, I'll never forget this story. My 4-year-old daughter was believing for a baby brother. She felt pumped about it. Every single night before bed, she prayed, like, not those like wussy prayers, like the powerful prayers. Like, I remember one time her saying, am I making this up? She said, Jesus, you died on the cross and you came back to life. You can give me a baby brother. She was like calling on the name of God, right? She knew it. She named her baby brother. She'd call him by his name. She believed it. I'll never forget when she was 4 years old. I remember tucking her into bed, and I remember saying, okay, you ready to pray? And she was like, and I'm like, what's going on? I remember her pursing her lips in defiance. And I remember her saying these words, I'll never forget this. She said, I have been praying for 6 weeks, and he's not listening to me. I've been praying for 6 weeks. He called him Keith. You know when your parents don't use your name, you're in big trouble? She even called God by his name. She's like, I've been praying for 6 weeks. And the funny thing is, she had been praying so much longer than that. She had been praying for over a year and a half, but in her mind, 6 weeks was the biggest number. And understand, this is how David felt. David had been praying for so long. The time frame was just the biggest time frame he'd ever prayed for something. Right. And that's how David felt, is that he wasn't listening. Yep. Not only that, it says this. David says these words, I am a worm and not a man. I'm scorned and despised by all. Everyone who sees me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, is this the one who relies on the Lord? Understand, David doubts if he has what it takes. He's doubting if he has what it takes. If he's man enough to do what God has put him on this earth to do. He's comparing himself to the most lowly and insignificant and ignorable creature on earth, a worm, feeling like he cannot do. He's too weak to do what God's asking him to do. And not only that, he is doubting in this passage. He's doubting the path that God has him on. He's doubting that God is leading him to a place that is to be desired. And instead he fears, maybe this path that God has me on is going to be a dead end. Then it moves further. He starts worrying that because of that, he might look foolish. That maybe because of that, he'll be the laughingstock of all of his peers. Not only that, David is doubting in these next passages. It later goes on to show that he's doubting if he has the strength to withstand this. We later see that David is empty of joy, of hope. He's empty. His strength is all dried up. His heart is in turmoil, and he fears the best is behind him. And even worse than that, he fears that God might have led him astray. There's no denying that David in Psalm 22 is doubting intensely. But here's what I want you to know this morning, is that even in David's doubting, he still depended on God. Yeah. Even in his doubting. Even when he felt empty, Even when he felt abandoned, even when he had been praying over and over and not receiving an answer, even when God felt far and he felt insignificant, he still placed his hope in God. He still said yes to his plan. He still said yes. It's hard to do. And in the next psalm, we see the difference it could make if we did the same. If we put our hope in God, if we continue to walk this path, if we continued to say yes, because there is a difference that could happen if we chose to do that. Look how David's spirit has changed seemingly overnight in this next passage. This is the beloved passage, Psalm 23, that so many people know and love. And I want you to, if you know this passage, I don't want you to just kind of skim along. I want you to think about the difference of where he was and what God did. Okay, as I read and just see the difference it can make, how his spirit has changed overnight. It says this, David speaking, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength." Remember, he said that he had no strength, he was empty, but now God's renewing his strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. God felt far, not anymore. He feels God close beside him. Your rod and your staff protect and they comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessing. What once was empty, guys, is overflowing. And says this, "Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life. I will live in the house of the Lord forever." It is as if, am I right, that David's doubts have disappeared. His doubts have disappeared. It didn't change his relationships. No, he still had enemies. It didn't change his path. No, he's still walking in a dark valley. But it's something radically changed his perspective. Guys, God wants to radically change your perspective this morning. I believe he brought you here this morning to tell you that if you trust in him, guys, he can make your doubts disappear. That he could make you more confident and secure in yourself and his plan and the path that he's put you on. God desires to assure us this morning. But in order for God to assure us with his voice, we first have to quiet our own. It's the first step. God wants to assure you that the first step in order to receive comfort from him is to quiet ourselves, to quiet our questions, to quiet our fears, to quiet our doubts. I picture a father bolting into the room of his child. He hears them crying in the middle of the night. There is no denying that that father cares so much for his child. He dropped everything he was doing to be at his child's side. He loves and cares for that child. He wants nothing more than to console that child. But what is the first thing he says? Shh. Shh. Knowing only when his child quiets their voice can they kind of find comfort in his. Shh. It's going to be okay. Shh. I'm right here. Only when they quiet their voice can they receive the comfort from his voice. And the same is true of God this morning. He cares immensely for you. And he desires to console you. But only when we quiet our voice can we receive comfort from him. We see that this is true in the life of David. When in the beginning of the first passage, remember I told you he was crying, he's throwing punches at God. Where are you? What are you doing? What's taking you so long? And guess what it says? He found no relief. He found no relief in that. But in this second passage, something has changed in his spirit, and this is how the passage starts. I'm just going to read it to you again. And if you want something to change in your spirit this morning, understand this is where it starts. He says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest." It's hidden in this verse. You didn't see it. But here's what I want you to know. David comparing God to a shepherd was not an accident. David had been a lifelong shepherd himself, and here's what he knew about a sheep, is that a sheep always responded to their shepherd's voice. Always responded. Don't miss this. When David is crying out to God and questioning, he found no relief. But when he was tuned into God's voice, he found rest.
Wow.
He found rest. Psalm 22 and 23 tells us straight out the gate, guys, that God can handle your questions. Give it to him.
Right.
Throw punches. Do it. He can handle your questions, but he can't talk over them.
Right.
He can't talk over them. He can handle it. But he's going to need you to quiet your voice so that he can speak kindly and lovingly to you, that he cares immensely for you. He wants to console you with his voice. He's waiting for us this morning to quiet our voice. Shh, the Father is saying. And when we quiet ourselves, would you believe it that he has something so assuring that he wants to say to us this morning? He has something so life-giving he wants to say to us. You see, in Psalm 23, there are so many things I could tell you, so many things I wanted to tell you, but it would take all day. You'll have to go back and read and study Psalm 23 all on your own. There's so much goodness to be had, but the thing that God wants to say to you this morning, it's simple, guys, but it could change everything in your spirit. God wants to assure you of one thing this morning, that you are on the right path.
Yeah.
That you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You ever been on the wrong path? Thought you knew where you were going, but you took a wrong turn? Thought you had a guide you could trust, but then they led you astray? I once had a guide that I couldn't trust, and his name is Krista Ortiz. I have a picture to prove it. This is going to tell me I'm lying. I have a picture. This is me. This is the end result of the path Krista Ortiz told me to follow him on. Okay? Yeah, it was really fun, as you can see. Okay? He promised me that he knew what he was doing. You see the mud? It's just everywhere. Like mushy. He promised me he knew what he was doing. He promised me that there were waterfalls to be seen. Apparently, yeah, I never saw them. No. But the view from the top would be worth it. That's what he told me. It's gonna be worth it. Just keep going. But that became increasingly hard to believe, and with every step that I took on this path that wasn't a path, where there was no one else around, every step that I took, my foot sunk in over a foot of mud. I'm not making this up, okay? As you can see, I'm not lying, okay? We never saw one waterfall that day. Not one. I'm not even sure they exist. And come to find out this, we were on the wrong path. Hold that thought. We were on the wrong path. Even more than that, we weren't even on a path at all. You ever happened to be you're on the wrong path? No, you're not even on a path, okay? Upon turning it back around, okay, we give up, throw up our hands, this isn't worth it, I'm mad. And here's what we find is a sign right next to where this picture's taken. And let me read you what this sign says. It says this: end of trail. Do not go beyond this sign. Please turn back. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't have the picture here. I have the picture on my phone. If you don't believe me, he's going to tell you that I'm lying. I have evidence. This is what the sign said. End of trail. Do not go beyond the sign. Please turn back. You see, I had put my trust in the wrong guide. He had led me astray. He led me down the wrong direction. And now I'm covered in mud. How many of us believe that about God, if we were honest? That sometimes we feel like our guide led us down the wrong path. That he led us down the wrong direction, and now we're covered in mud. That we feel like he told us it was going to be worth it, but now I'm just starting to feel like I'm going to be disgraced. He told me that this destination that he has for me will be to be desired, but this is really feeling like a dead end. But with David, that was not the case. It's not the case, not in Psalm 23. This is what he says, and I want to share this passage with you, and what I am giving you today is tried and true assurance. This is what God has infused courage and assurance into me. So I want to give this to you today, and I want you to reread this passage, and I'm going to bring it to life for you. Here's what David says in Psalm 23 about the path that he's walking. He says this: he guides me along right paths. What kind of paths? Right paths. Bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Here's what David is saying, is my guide makes no mistakes. He takes no wrong turns. My God can be trusted. If you are following Jesus today, then I want you to rest assured you are right where God intended for you to be. Mm-hmm. You're in the right neighborhood. You're in the right job. You're married to the right person. You're here for a reason. You are right where He intended for you to be. You can be confident of that. Even if you walk in a dark valley today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Even if you walk in a dark valley, it says He guides me along right paths. Yeah. Even when I walk through the darkest valley. Guys, when I read this verse, this is what I wrote in my Bible. I wrote it down. Next to my Bible, it says these words next to this passage. Whoa. Whoa! I wrote it in my Bible. This dark valley is the right path for me to walk. I do not walk it alone, make no mistake. He is guiding me. And He will bring me out of this. And when He does, guess what? He will bring honor to His name. We do not walk alone, guys, on this path. He is guiding us. You want to know visually what it looks like when someone's guiding you. There's nothing like a good New York City mom illustration, okay? New York City moms, we are fierce. We are fierce. Yeah. Don't mess with my baby or I will cut you, okay? When I'm walking down the street in a peaceful place, I'm holding my daughter's hand. We're walking together. But something changes when the path gets rough and difficult. When we're walking through Times Square, or I hear somebody yelling, all of a sudden something shifts, and I start to take her, and I start to position her behind me. Literally blocking her from every single thing that could hurt her, scare her, everything. Understand God does the same thing with you. That's what it looks like when God guides you. He goes before you. Yeah, wow, He doesn't let anyone touch you on this path. This path is scary, but He's blocking them from ever touching you. Your God goes ahead of you, and any path He asks you to walk, here's the end of the story. He will bring honor and glory to His name. That's the end of the story. Right. That's good. You want to know what that means? Someone's like, I don't know what that means. But what does it mean if He's going to bring honor and glory to His name? Here's the translation for you. You will be floored. Yeah. You will be floored. If you walk down the path that God has for you, no matter how uncertain, I'm here to tell you that you're not just going to make it through. He's going to blow your mind. Yeah. Oh. I told you about a time I went down the wrong path with the wrong guide. But I want to tell you about a time where I went down a confusing path and God blew my mind. You see, back in February, Ricky and I, we went to Maui, just the two of us. And it was during this time of my life that I was truly in Psalm 22, right? I'm questioning God. I need His encouragement. I need a vision for where we're going. I needed Him to give me confidence. And when we went to Maui, I just asked God, like, can you just give me something to hold on to? Something. And it was during that time that we made a decision to go on a drive called the Road to Hana. I don't know if you're familiar with this drive, but it is considered one of the most beautiful drives in the entire world. It's amazing. It is such an incredible drive. It takes all day long, so I remember printing off a travel blog that gave us directions on all the best places to stop. We had our potato chips and our Pepsi. Ricky rented a Jeep. We were ready to go. And I remember this beautiful path, like weaving through cliffs, just like these incredible cliffs off the coast of Maui. I remember going in between different rainforests and bamboo forests, and it was incredible. I remember stopping at all these beaches, and every beach was more beautiful than the last. It was incredible. But it was nearing the end of our trip. We had probably, at that point, been driving for like 6 hours. It was a long day, and there was just one more beach that we hadn't seen yet. We wavered back and forth. Should we do it? Should we not? Because this one was a little sketchy. You see, the blog posts that I had printed, all of them, it was very clear where we were supposed to go. And they led us to all these touristy places, and we felt confident in that, right? Felt confident in that path. But this was different. This beach was different. And we made the decision, okay, we're going to try for it, but we don't know where this path is going to take us. So we pulled over in this random parking lot. And I remember there was an abandoned building, and the directions said to walk behind the abandoned building through abandoned field and to go down a dirt hill. what all great stories start, right? And everything in me is screaming, this is not a good idea, right? I've been led astray before. This is not a good idea. Sorry to keep pointing at you, it's fresh. Okay, I've been led astray before, and I remember going down a hill, and I remember scraping my knee and stumbling and thinking, this is not going to be worth it. I remember as we went around this cliff, it's like one person could only go, one person to be behind the other, there's not enough room. We're going around this cliff, this dirt cliff, there's nothing to be seen, and everything in me is questioning it'll be worth it. And I stopped for a second, I was like, I don't know if we're on the right path. Let me pull up the blog post and see, let me check. And I want you to see the words that I saw when I questioned the path. Here's what it said about the path that we were on. It said, yes, it's a bit of a hike, but it's oh so worth it. Whatever you decide to do, keep going. You'll know it when you see it. You will be floored. I replayed it over and over in my head. Keep going. You'll be floored. It's a hike, but it's going to be worth it. I replayed it over and over in my head. Similar, right, to the path that we're on with God. Right? Just keep going. It'll be worth it. Keep going. You will be floored. And guys, I'm not making this up, am I? When we neared the corner, we were floored. I'm going to show you a picture, but I'm telling you right now, it doesn't do it justice. It doesn't even do it justice. As we neared this corner that literally felt like it was leading to nowhere, it opened up. And here you can see, these are little people here, so this is ginormous. We never saw a picture of what was ahead, and this was there all along. And there was a few little people in a secluded red beach. The sand was the most rich red color. You can see it right here, it's like this color. And the beach was all to ourselves. And I just remember thinking, I'm so glad I kept going. I'm so glad that the path that didn't seem worth it now had me standing in awe. And I'm glad I got to experience it because we kept going even when it didn't make sense. Understand God is asking you to do the same thing in your life, guys. This path you are walking, it doesn't make sense. I understand that. It's hard. Everything in you is screaming, turn back, now this isn't a good idea. And God is like, keep going. What I have for you will floor you. God spoke so comfortingly to me in this moment, exactly what I asked him for, that I remember when we got back to the Jeep that day, I scrambled to write down everything that God was saying to me. And I wrote it down. I'm going to share it with you today. I'm just going to speak it over you today, because I believe that someone in this room is going to be encouraged with what God has to say to us about the path that we're on. Here's how God spoke to me in this moment. He said this, the path you are on is uncertain, yes, if not at times completely confusing. I love a God that doesn't shush our pain away. He's like, yeah, no, this is uncertain. Yeah, this is confusing. But then he says this, but it will be worth it. It'll be worth it. Oh, so worth it. Just remember, whatever you do, keep going. Keep going even when others quit. Even when you watch so many others settle for the safer path, keep going. Never stop following the path that I've placed you on. Never stop. You'll know the destination when you see it. The destination I was preparing for you all along, and every harrowing step of the way. You will be. God wants you to know today that the path you are on might not make sense, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. That not only are you on the right path, but if you stay the course, guys, you will stand in awe of what God has prepared for you. God is assuring us today that we can be confident in that. Your God is leading you on the right path. He would never lead you astray. And that if you follow this path, He will blow your mind. You can be confident in that. But I can feel someone saying, but Krista, what about me? This whole time you've been saying, if you trust God, you can know you're on the right path. If you trust God, you can know that that path will lead to something that is too great for words. But what about me? Maybe you haven't trusted God. Maybe you haven't made a decision to follow Jesus. Maybe you did make a decision to follow Jesus, but then you walked away from that path, right? Maybe you're here physically, but you walked away emotionally from that path. I'm here to tell you today that I can't assure you that you're on the right path. I can't assure you that God has these incredible things for you along the path that you're walking, but you know what I can assure you about? Is that you're welcome. You're always welcome.
Yeah.
This is what the verse says at the end, but I just want to encourage you with. If you haven't made a decision to follow Jesus, or you've walked away from following Jesus, or if you have decided that you want him to bless your path instead of following his, I want you to know that you're always welcome. Psalm 23 closes with this verse, and it's the same verse that I close with. It says, surely your goodness and unfailing love pursue me all the days of my life. God has been pursuing you your whole life. He's been whispering in your ear your whole life that I've got incredible things for you.
Right.
Way more incredible than what you have for you. He's been pursuing you your whole life, even when you weren't interested.
Yeah.
But then here's what I also want you to know. It says, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. That word live right here. And I will live. In Hebrew, that means to live or to return to live. And I will live, or I will return to live in the house of the Lord forever. Understand, there is nothing you could ever do where you would not be welcome back. Nothing you could do in your past, nothing you could do in your future that you will never be welcomed back into God's presence. It doesn't matter how far you run, he will welcome you back with open arms. If you are still walking this earth, then you are welcome. That you are welcome to come back on the path that God has for you. He has it for you even when you walk away. You are welcome to come back on that path. And even more, when you're on that path, you are welcome to receive the blessings that he's already had prepared all along the way. Understand, God is assuring each of us today. He's assuring us that we're on the right path and that it will blow our minds. And he's assuring the rest of us that maybe have walked away that we are always welcome back.
Yeah.
Always welcome back. But here's the problem. Jesus didn't promise us that he would assure us, did he? He promised us that we would be assured, right? But understand, that part's on you. It's on you, because here's what I want you to know, is that God is assuring you today, but we become assured when we believe him.
Right.
We become assured when we believe him. God is assuring you, but will you believe him? I want to close with this question today, and I'm going to ask you to do something around this question. Here's what it is. How is God assuring you today? What is he asking you to be more secure and confident in? Remember, you're assured when you believe him.
Yeah, that's good.
Is God assuring you of his heart? That he's good, that he's kind, that he forgives you no matter what you've done, that he can be trusted, that he hasn't left your side, that he's not like your father. How is God assuring you of his heart? Maybe he's not assuring you of his heart. Maybe he's assuring you of his plan, that his plan is good for you, that he knows what he's doing, that he's a guide that can be trusted, and that he has such incredible things in store for you that your brain couldn't comprehend it. And he's assuring you of that. Or maybe, just maybe, he's assuring you of you. Remember, David felt insignificant and lowly, like he didn't have what it takes. Maybe God's assuring you that you've got it in you. That he sees so much more in you than you see in yourself. He sees more in you than you've ever seen in your very best day. That you have what it takes.
Right.
Get back in the game. I chose you for this. You can do this. I don't know how God is assuring you this morning, but this morning I'm going to give you the opportunity to say, I believe it. I believe what he's saying. To move from being assured by God to assured ourselves. We're going to have that opportunity. And I want to, before I explain to you what we're going to do, I want to tell you the power of what I'm inviting you to do. You see, there's boards behind you where I'm going to have you go back, and there's pens, and I want you to write on the boards what God is assuring you of today. It might not have been anything that I've said, My words are not magical. Maybe God has been pursuing you for a long time, trying to get something through to you. And I want you to write it down on that board, what He's assuring you of, and I want you to write it like you believe it. I want you to write it like you believe it. And here's the power of what I'm inviting you to do. This is my tattered piece of junk Bible. And in this, whenever I open up my Bible, it's obnoxious. This paper falls out every single time. But understand, this paper, back in 2016, is when I did what I'm inviting you to do right now. It's on this paper that I wrote how God was assuring me. He had been assuring me for a very long time, but I had not believed Him yet. And so I wrote these things on this paper, and I'll read them to you. It says this: I have been chosen by God. I have a voice that matters, and I'm not who they've said that I am. And I can walk confidently in who God has made me to be because of it. Understand, I had never spoken in front of one person yet. I hadn't embarked on what God chose me for. But on this day, this was day one, is when I said, I believe you, God. I believe you. I'm going to give you that opportunity today to take a stand on what God has said. And understand that when we do that, when we take a stand and say, God, you're saying this, and I'm going to write that I believe this. I'm going to stand on it like you mean it, like I know that this is part of me, that you've got this good in store for me. Then everything can change. Today is day one.